Well, welcome. Thank you for joining our Focus Forum. Our topic today is community dialogue in a time of COVID, and it promises to be a very interesting forum. I'm Rita Riker, President of the Board of Focus Greater Syracuse, and I'm pleased to welcome you to our forum and delighted that our expert panelists can join us today. Peter Willner, JahQuan Bey-Wright, Asean Malik Bey, and Geraldine Linares. They will be formally introduced in just a moment. Today's forum is one of a series of forums focused on the implications of and how we in Central New York are coping with COVID-19. Before we get started, just a few reminders about our format. So this format is scheduled for 1 hour and we will be recording today's session. Our panelists will each present for about 5 minutes, followed by about 20 minutes of Q&A, where we will address as many of your questions as possible, including those submitted ahead of time. If you have a question for our panelists or a suggested topic for a future forum, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Board member Amy Rood will be monitoring the Q&A. If you have troubles using Zoom online, please try dialing in using the alternate phone number, meeting number, and password included in your invitation. Board member Brian Hoke has also placed that information in the chat box, or will do so shortly. Finally, we encourage you to complete a very brief survey that you will receive after this forum so that we can better understand your experience with this forum. Now, I'm very pleased to turn this over to Emeritus Board Member and Focus Wisdom Keeper, William Sanford, who will serve as our moderator and who will introduce our panelists. Bill?
Thank you, Rita. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us this morning, all the friends of Focus, as well as the panelists and the board members. Our first panelist today is Peter Willner, and he has worked for the past 6 years with the Interfaith Works as its director. He's the director at the Al Hindi Center for Dialogue, through which 1,500 to 2,000 people annually participate in dialogue programming to address racism. He moved back to Central New York after 17 years working on justice reform issues in the Washington, D.C. area. Peter, really thank you for being here this morning, and the mic is yours.
Well, thank you all. Thank you everyone for being here on a rainy early day. So it's good to see everyone. And just thank you. I'm really looking forward to hearing from our panelists today too. So I'll quickly go over, for people who may not know who Interfaith Works is. We are a human service organization established in 1976. We have 4 major programs. We have a Center for New Americans that does refugee resettlement. We have a senior services program that addresses elder isolation. We have an interfaith initiatives program that's a multi-faith chaplaincy program in jails, hospitals, and nursing homes. And last but not least, we have the Al Hindi Center for Dialogue, which is considered to be one of the longest continually running programs addressing racism in the country. We were formed in 1995. And our programs are in schools, colleges, and universities, workplaces, and in the community. And so with that, we're here today to address how are we doing dialogue in an era of COVID. And I think I'm just going to talk a little bit about how were we challenged to do our work as COVID came to us in March. So that the challenges became, pretty readily apparent. I mean, the format that we're in right now, there was a lot of questions about, could we actually get small, diverse groups of people together? We normally do small group work of 10 to 14 people with 2 trained facilitators in person. And I think there were some questions about, could we actually have hard but productive conversations about race and racism in a format like this? And we spent a lot of time and effort learning to conduct dialogues in an online environment. We did a lot of research and development to take our dialogue guides and tailor them with online facilitation tips. And I think what we've found is that having hard conversations about race and racism, whether we're in person or in an online platform, is just that. There are still hard conversations about race and racism. And I think the other thing is that we're really in an era of that my other colleagues here, both from Interfaith Works and from the Peacemaking Center, may talk about as well. But we're in an era of multiple pandemics. It's not just COVID. It's this. I think we've always had this pandemic of racism, but it's almost like a reawakening to the pandemic of racism. And so grappling with the financial challenges that have been put upon all of us, organizations, institutions, and individuals, but also being really, really mindful that we have to be addressing racial equity at this point in time. And so in a lot of the work we do with school districts, this is something that's really still evolving for us, as school districts grapple with, just the day-to-day realities of how do we educate our children in an era of COVID and an online platform, in-person hybrid models, while also recognizing that school districts really need to be having continue to have conversations about race and racism with their students, especially now more than ever. These are real significant challenges, and I'm really grateful to the school districts that we work with, that we continue to work with in this time, that they're still embarking on having these conversations. So I think those are some of the challenges around this, a little bit of how we've begun to address it. I'm mindful of my time. So I think what I want to do is I want to introduce my colleague, JahQuan Bey-Wright, and have him talk about some of the things we've done to do this. And I think, it's going to be hard to introduce JahQuan. He's been with us 3 months, but it feels like it's been a lot longer because he's had such an impact. He's a really impressive and amazing colleague. He doesn't look like it, but he's had about 2 decades of experience in human services, program management, program coordination. And he comes to us bringing that experience to hone in on how do we address race and racism. And so I think there's a lot more I could say about him, but I'll turn it over to JahQuan.
Thank you, Peter. To pick up where Peter left off, I think in this era of time, I think Black and brown people as a whole are living in 3 separate pandemics, through COVID-19, through police brutality, and through urban crimes. Plus, epidemics like diabetes and high blood pressure, addiction, and obesity. So those are the challenges I think that Black and brown people are living through right now. And then as an account to that, we have to try to transform everything that we would normally do in person and transform them to doing them online or on Zooms or Google Meets or however it's being done. That's a number 1 challenge. And then introducing new ways to get young people engaged and stay engaged online, and reassuring that doing things online, because people are very, young people and older people are very nervous about doing things online. So we're trying to convince them that this is a courageous conversation in a safe place, for a brave space to have peace, diversity, and anti-racism conversations. We also do community and police relations, and one of the challenges is police don't feel appreciated, and people in the community don't feel that they're being heard. That's another challenge, as well as not being able to have a one-on-one heartfelt conversation face-to-face. With a program we have called Seeds of Peace, where kids would normally be able to go somewhere after school trying to convince them that we can do this online and we can be excited about it and have fun still online. Definitely a huge challenge. We do school exchanges where you bring one high school from the inner city and another suburban high school together, and you talk about diversity and inclusion. Well, the school teachers are dealing with a whole nother separate issue. They have to have their curriculum put online on top of grading the papers and dealing with people and technical issues that they never had to deal with. So for us to come in and try to engage in diversity and inclusion on top of everything else that they're going through day to day is a huge issue. And we do like forums and classes for diversity and inclusion for Syracuse University with students and DPS, and they're dealing, college students again are dealing with having to learn online, and some people can't even look at a computer for too long, you know what I mean? So now, but they're dealing with race and inequities up on the university, and have to do their schoolwork online, and dealing with the teachers and professors and deans who have to deal with multiple things. So this is a very trying time. We've managed to find our way through it. We've kind of reinvented the wheel when it comes to how we handle things. We've come up with new innovating ways to make people feel included and make people feel safe, and but still get the message, and having the right people in the right room at the right time. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'll pass it to Bill.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Peter and JahQuan, for sharing that information with us. Our next panelist, he has an unbelievable resume, and I'd just like to hit on a few of the highlights of it. Asean Malik Bey, who is coordinator of restorative justice at the Center of Court Innovations Syracuse Peacemaking Project. He has been involved in social justice campaigns and initiatives since 2002. He is a trained youth gang advocate and has been part of peace initiatives and roundtables for various street organizations. Through this work, he has been involved in community outreach and conferences in New York City, California, Baltimore, and Puerto Rico, addressing street violence. He's the founder of the SLG prison program, which organizes around environmental justice, social justice, prisoners' rights, and alternatives to incarceration. Campaigns in various cities in the U.S. Were geared towards the youth that he was involved with. He also is a founder of It Takes a Village discussion series, which focuses on bridging the gap between at-risk youth and service providers working and living in Rochester, Syracuse, and New York. Thank you for joining us, and the mic is yours, Asean.
Good morning, everyone. So just to pick up where JahQuan left off, I think that we're facing the same problems that we were facing before COVID, but everything intensified. And the first couple of months of COVID, there was this big disconnect because everybody was trying to figure out how to do this remotely, right? How to reach our families, how to reach our children, our students remotely, and then get them to engage remotely. So I think it was a roller coaster those first couple of months. And, you know, I do want to highlight the fact that our community as a whole, I feel rose to the occasion, right? You know, food giveaways and, you know, making sure our families, you know, had food and had, you know, adequate services, and that our students got the equipment that they needed in order to go remote and to learn, you know, even though, you know, we had to do it on various platforms like Zoom and things of that nature. You know, I will say that our families really, you know, struggled at first. And then even they rose to the occasion, right? Where, you know, we learned as a community how to come together through adversity and how to come together and dialogue with each other and communicate with each other about the things that we were feeling and the things that we needed, and so on and so forth. And even through all the social inequities and all the things that were going on, I think our youth are kind of finding their voice and found their voice. You know, talking about the rallies in Syracuse and, you know, all these other things that were going on in Syracuse, where the youth got a chance to really rise to the occasion and communicate with each other and let their voice be heard. So, once again, I think it was a roller coaster, but, you know, I think we slowly have found a way to still provide the services that we need to provide, although, you know, we're facing some tough times and, you know, we're still not over what it is we need to be over. So I think it's a work in progress, but I think that, you know, we all have rose to the occasion. So that's what I got.
Would you like to introduce Geraldine?
Oh yeah, so this is Geraldine. She is a trained peacemaker at the Syracuse Peacemaking Project. And I'm sure she'll tell you more about herself. She also has a lengthy resume, and she's just an all around, you know, great person. So Geraldine.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Geraldine Linares. Very excited to be here today and be able to take part in this discussion. I am an attorney within the Syracuse community. I recently returned and I really wanted to get involved in giving back to my community and taking part in the outreach programs that are available in order to help individuals within the community. I came upon Peacemaking and I thought it was an amazing program where throughout my training, what I got most out of it is pretty much learning how to listen, not to respond, not to resolve, but to understand. And in understanding, helping individuals ease conflict that they're going through at the moment, whether it's within families, within neighbors, parents, and so on. So currently, I do have to say, and to piggyback off of what my previous panelists have mentioned, it was a roller coaster trying to still be involved and get people involved. However, I'm currently, even now, taking part in a peacemaking circle, and we're still able, although it is through Zooms and groups like this, like we're still able to reach out to our individuals. Like we're still able to like resolve our conflict. So as Asean had said, we have been able to rise to the occasion and still find ways to meet the needs of our community. And I will give my time for that since I do want us to start getting into like our questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sean and Geraldine. We would like to now move on to open up our forum to questions from the audience. If you have questions, please include it in the question and answer section below on your screen. I'd like to turn this over now to Amy Rood, who has compiled some of these questions as they were turned in, and she will be the one that would ask the questions that she has received from the audience. Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Bill, and thank you to all of our panelists for joining this morning and our audience for attending. We did have some pre-submitted questions, so I'm going to start first with the questions that have been asked live and then go to those pre-submitted questions. So the first question is from Sarah McNamara. She asks about access to technology. She says it's becoming a fundamental equity issue. It's the doorway to learning, working, healthcare, services, and even play. Is this coming up in your dialogues and efforts to engage individuals? Do any of our panelists feel comfortable answering that?
Well, it doesn't come up with ours because we deal with a lot of students, and college students have their own computers prior to COVID, and high school students and middle school students are being provided computers if they didn't already have them on phone. And most teenagers don't even use the computers because I don't know a teenager alive who doesn't have a cell phone. So they're all using them on their cell phones in today's day.
I would add too that I think that we've also seen that there are some people, some families who do not have any access at all, and so I think to pick up on something that Asean mentioned earlier around providing food to people during this time, there's also been a really good effort to supplement families who have no technology or maybe have no internet with giving them computers and giving them Wi-Fi access. It's not a big, I don't think we've seen it being a very big population, but there are some, and I think that's particularly true of refugee families, not exclusively, but we've seen that as well.
Great, thank you both very much. So some of our pre-submitted questions are, do you think that COVID-19 is showing us new ways to dialogue between diverse groups or individuals?
I can answer that question. Absolutely. If anything, I feel that COVID has opened up new doorways for us to be able to communicate. We are now more than ever so dependent upon technology and social platforms that we constantly see, well, we're more aware of what is being said, what is happening. So, well, perfect example, I'm currently part of a book club, and the book of choice is Just Mercy, and it is over 100 participants currently of all races, all social backgrounds, and all types of professions. And what the purpose of this particular book community that I'm in is just to open up that dialogue and speak. You know, there's people who come in and they just want to express how much COVID has affected them and all of the racial injustice that we've seen as COVID has just transpired. And there's other individuals who just want to learn more about how can I help my community? You know, like how can I open up my viewpoint in order to extend my hand and assist the community in closing up the gaps that we currently have. So I 100% think that COVID has given us that platform to be able to find different ways to communicate with one another.
That actually, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would add on to that. Me and Peter have been in, well, with this new age of the internet and how we're using it, we can reach places that we normally couldn't reach in a day. and reach people that we normally wouldn't reach. We can go region to region, state to state, city to city. And it was my first time, Peter. I don't know if it was yours, but we did a facilitation where it was supposed to be 150 people. It ended up more like 130 people that we facilitated at one time, but just to have that mass amount of people at one time, which, you know, to coordinate that in a normal pre-COVID time would have been, no one would have thought of doing it. You know what I mean? Because people weren't on Zoom like that. You did it every once in a while, but so we're able to reach people faster and do things that we have never been able to done before. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Amy.
Oh, no, I apologize. Geraldine, you had a really nice thought about people wanting to get involved. So that is a good segue for one of our questions, which is if someone wants to get involved with these programs or has a need for community discussion, how does someone get involved?
I think there's various ways of getting involved. To touch back on what I said previously, how we now have access to, and people want to get like more involved and have more access to different programs. It really depends on just doing your research and finding out what it is that you want to take part in. Personally, for me, I knew coming back to Syracuse, I wanted to take part within the city community of Syracuse. And I looked up programs. I had a friend who she is part of the staff for Peacemaking, and she introduced me to what it is they did. I had another individual who they knew I wanted to start being more involved. She suggested the book club. So it's all about just finding out what your niche is, what it is that you want to learn or be involved in, and just researching it and reaching out. I have found that reaching out and letting people know what you're interested in, it is going to open more doors for you. I'm not sure if any of my other panelists wanted to had any input in that question.
Peter, would you like to say something about how people get involved with Interfaith Works?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to our, I mean, to answer that question directly, you can go to our website, which is interfaithworkscny.org. And there actually is a button up there, I believe, about how do you get involved, but you can also look at all 4 of our programs, and there are ways to get engaged in all of our programs, and including being a part of dialogue circles as well.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both very much. So our next question was pre-submitted, and it is, has the impact of COVID-19 changed your mission or methods for conflict resolution?
I think it has. I think we didn't have any choice but to change our methods. Like Geraldine was saying, we have a case that we're working on, a peace circle that we're working on, where half of the family is in one state and the other half is in Syracuse, but they have a conflict. And usually we wouldn't take those kind of cases because obviously the family would not be able to sit in circle or utilize any other of our programming. But using Zoom, we were able to, you know, bridge the gap between the family and hold our circles through Zoom. Same thing with our youth impact team and, you know, our community impact team. We really had to teach these kids, you know, how to be accountable in order for us to still meet and still keep, you know, the collective together and, you know, plan for the future. So I think it definitely changed the way that we all communicated. That, you know, there were more staff meetings, there were more, you know, just huddles on how to get through this pandemic. and how to keep the integrity of our work while we did so. So I think it changed a lot. I think it changed for everybody.
Thank you, Asean. Did any of the other panelists want to contribute to that? Okay. So we do have some other pre-submitted questions. How do you work for better understanding between the different cultures in our central New York area, including the suburbs?
Can you re-ask that question, please?
Absolutely. Let me just unmute myself. How do you work for better understanding between the different cultures in our central New York community, including the suburbs?
Well, in school exchanges that we do, it's kind of a lot of people only know what they see on Facebook or Snapchat or Instagram or whatever the fun things that they do now, and or what they see in songs and music videos. So when they go and actually meet people, the stereotypes that they normally have are usually not what they think they are. Every inner city kid who listens to rap music or hip hop doesn't live out every song that you hear about. You know what I mean? And every white kid out in the suburbs that black kids meet, they find out that they don't all listen to rock and roll, or you know what I mean? It's just it just breaks the narratives of the cultures once they meet each other face to face online. When we put them through dialogues, we have them do interactions that they learn about each other firsthand, and like we do the privilege journey. If anybody knows about the privilege journey, which when you do the privilege journey normally, pre-COVID, everybody would be in a room and you would see each other and you would take step forwards according to your privilege journey. Well, how we've been able to remix it on Zoom is we have everyone flash on their screen. So you see everyone on your screen. So it gives you the same feeling. And the people who you thought would be on the screen at the specific time, or wouldn't be on a screen at a specific time, you can tell the difference, and they're usually shocked. And to be honest, we're shocked, even though we're the facilitators. You know what I mean? We're still human. You know what I mean? So that's how we've been able to get people to see each other, and it's teens and college students, deans and professor, all alike. You know what I mean? And people realize all their biases that they have that they didn't realize that they even had. It had become so normal in this day and time. And then with this government that we're surviving under, it's because things have become normalized that normally were kept in secret.
Thank you very much. So another question that we had was, how do you resolve differences within the community or within an organization?
Can you clarify that question a bit, please?
What are some methods that your organizations use to help mitigate those issues?
Okay, well, I can speak from my current experience as a peacemaker. One of the things that we do is, and it's been a bit difficult because now we're using platforms such as Zoom, but usually how it works is that we're in a circle and everyone gets a chance to speak. The benefit of that is that many times there's sometimes one person is more timid than the other, or they don't have a chance to jump in and say their piece. And this allows everyone to have a moment, as well as, and back to what I had previously said, we're listening to understand, not listening to react. So a way to mitigate that is you have to wait. We usually have like a peacemaking item, and it goes around, and when you have it, that's your turn to speak. So the benefit of that as well is that if I made a comment and maybe Asean didn't really agree with it, but there's 2-3 people before he can actually speak, the idea is by the time it reaches him, he might have been upset and have reacted in a more aggressive way than he would have had now that he had time to actually simmer, as I would say, and really think about how a better way to respond to me. So with Zoom in that aspect, it's been a bit more difficult to carry that out because we lost that giving each other space, giving each other that time before responding. So I would say, from my experience, that is something that has helped.
Would you mind repeating the question again, Amy?
Sorry about that.
No.
How do you resolve differences within the community or within an organization? So understanding how different methods for resolving issues.
Yeah, Geraldine's answer was wonderful. I mean, I think there's so much similarity between sort of core method that we use. I think what I always find interesting though is how there can sometimes be conflict in silence, and that sounds kind of odd to say, right? But it's sometimes people don't feel like they can share, they can be vulnerable, that they don't have anything, that they don't have a stake, and so sometimes people don't feel like they can be brave enough to say something. And so I think sometimes what we do is we apply tactic to how can we draw out voices and almost ensure anonymity to the extent you can in a group. And so sometimes what we'll do is we'll have people submit anonymous writing reflections about, so what's preventing you from engaging in this conversation? What's holding you back? And we would do that in person with handing out sheets of paper and having them turn them into facilitators. In an online environment, I think one of the great things is we have this chat function. And so people can submit individual writings to a facilitator. And then we can kind of sift through those and pull out statements and read them to the group and have the group discuss what the issues may be among the group that's holding them up. And so, sometimes, and I think we see it a lot around race and racism, where there can be disproportionate vulnerability, so people who are white, sometimes are processing and thinking, but we're not, when we don't share, it's how does that get interpreted by other people in the group? And so we use tactic and strategy to try to draw that out in ways that help advance the conversation moving forward.
Wonderful. Thank you both very much. So has anyone on the panel dealt with groups resolving issues where violence was a potential that had to be diffused? And how did you do that?
Hey, Sean, you are right in the middle of all of that with gang violence and all of that kind of business. Would you like to respond to that?
Well, with the Syracuse Peacemaking Project, we really don't, the methods that we use to resolve conflict is different than some of those that you mentioned on my resume. I think we just, we try to facilitate and not lead. We try to listen to everybody. But throughout COVID, there has not been any issues of violence per se, just conflict. And,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So what does the group think about, one thing that someone asked was, what do you think about imposing a time limit on discussions of topics that are especially contentious?
I guess it depends on the topic and the setting, just because there are topics that they arise a lot of emotion out of people and people have a lot to say about it. And ultimately you want to give individuals that chance to say their piece on how they feel about that particular subject. However, let's say if it's in a group setting, such as a panelist group, similar to what we have now, ultimately you do want to be able to get to every question and give everyone a chance to speak on the particular questions that they have. So again, it depends on the setting and what it is that's being discussed.
Thank you very much. So some other questions that we had are, what methods do you use to A, draw out new ways of thinking, B, narrow a topic or help a group focus on an issue, and C, measure consensus?
I know with peacemaking, and Geraldine had mentioned some of this before, our job is not necessarily even to try to solve the issue, but to allow our participants to solve the issue by coming to a consensus, right? So, we utilize certain methods such as the talking piece, the circle format, having, peacemakers that are trained to kind of, give their input and so on and so forth. And, the whole objective is to give people a chance and a space to listen to each other, to consider each other's feelings and emotions and perspectives, and kind of come to a consensus on how to move forward peacefully. So, it's just about utilizing the methods that we have learned from our native trainers in order to give people a different perspective on how to handle conflict.
Two things that I'd just like to bring up that maybe would spur some other information giving is my daughter down there in Atlanta, who's a elementary school teacher, a very diverse class and like that. She uses music from the various cultures and that sort of thing to get people to start to understand each other and listen to each other and that sort of thing. And if music can be a vehicle to cause, understanding and have people get their emotions out and all of that business, are there other techniques like that and things that can be used in order to facilitate that?
Some of the things I do, I'll usually have a icebreaker activity. Usually it relaxes people more versus just jumping right into things. I'll have questions set up that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to use those questions. It's more of if I feel that the conversation is steering away from the main topic, to be able to bring it back in. Another thing is that I love using different quotes that I feel that applies to the matter at hand. just because it gets everyone in that state of mind, like, oh, okay, yeah, that goes exactly to what we're going to speak about now. So something to get people to start thinking in the way I want them to focus on.
That's excellent. Yeah.
What I like to do is when I'm talking to people and having courageous conversations, I don't like it to look scholastic. I want it to be a very normal conversation, like we're in Walmart, at the club, walking down the street, at a game. You know what I mean? I remember the saying, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So I understand the environment that I'm in, and I speak to people's language. You know what I mean? I use hip hop references. I use references from sports. You know what I'm saying? I have a real conversation. You know what I mean? I know the objective, but it's a real conversation, and it's not a school setting. I don't like people on mute. You know what I mean? Speak freely, because in real life, someone might be talking and you might be talking at the same time, and you might interrupt each other. It's a real, you know what I mean? I try to make it as real as possible. You know what I mean? So that's what works for me.
Great, thank you.
I think too, what's interesting though to think about is, like, you have, you know, to engage people. Some people aren't as talkative. Some people are really talkative, and so engagement. It's recognizing that what engagement looks like for people can vary person to person to person, and so sometimes, like, breaking people up into small groups or pairs to talk and then come to the larger group can also get people a little bit more comfort. And when people are talking in a pair or in an online environment, we're putting people into breakout rooms, and facilitators go into those breakout rooms and just kind of see how people are doing. Are they on point? That's also engagement. It doesn't have to be always done through the lens of a group. It can be done in pairs and different tactics and strategies.
Thank you both. Are any of you collaborating or partnering with other community-based programs and individuals that have relationships within the community? If so, how? And if not, why?
We collaborate with, well, obviously other different schools and school districts, but well, that's not obvious, but other schools, school districts, the CRB. We're working on collaborations with 100 Black Men, Building Men of Syracuse, just to name a few. And how and why? Because we have similar interests, and in this time we can, you know, we don't want to do the exact same thing that other people are doing, but if we're doing similar things, we try to fill the void that the other organization is not filling. Like for us with CRB, they deal more with the police department directly. We deal with more with the community directly on a day-to-day basis. So together, if we're doing police and community dialogues, it only made sense for me to reach out to them and so we could work with them on police community dialogues, for example.
And CRB Citizens Review Board?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, and I think the same with us. I think that during this time, you know, it was mandatory that we all collaborated, right? Because we had to think about the welfare of our community and, you know, not our individual projects or agendas. So we work with Vera House, Building Men. We work with Black Health. Huntington. You know, we work with everybody in the community. We've collaborated, Syracuse PD, in some way, shape, or form with, you know, everybody that was out here doing the work, just in order to bring, you know, some relief to the community.
Thank you both very much. How do you go about utilizing your services? If you feel that you need help in creating dialogue and managing dialogue, how do you do that for both of your groups? Asean, how would we go about?
I was going to ask you to repeat the question.
Oh, no. If we would like to utilize your services, how do we do that?
Oh, well, we're located at 601 Tully Street, and the Syracuse Peacemaking Project. You can also reach me directly through phone or email, which I can type into the chat. We have a Facebook page, Syracuse Peacemaking Project. So there's many ways to contact, you know, the center if you want to work together or collaborate.
Thank you.
So do we have time for another question?
I think that we have time for just one more. Just see what we have here in the chat. So if a group were to need your services, are you able to provide more or different services?
And for us, in the realm of what we do, I mean, we adapt and make it happen. Shout out to Peter. He reaches out to different places, or people reach out to him, and we just adapt and adjust what we normally do to fit the narrative. But absolutely, we're not in a vacuum or stuck. You know what I mean? We can do dialogues, or we could do forums. You know what I mean? Or we could do courageous conversations in circles. You know what I mean? It just, we find new and innovative ways to get the job done.
All right.
I'd like to thank everybody. This has been a very revealing and interesting discussion. And I think we have a minute left or so, and I would like to know if Amy, thank you so much for asking and compiling these questions for us. I'd like to ask if Rita would like to close the session.
Yes, I want to thank our panelists, Peter, JahQuan, Asean, and Geraldine, for sharing your expertise in this forum. I hope this has been a great experience for everyone. I know I have learned a lot, so I appreciate you being here. If anyone knows someone who would enjoy viewing this, or if you'd like to view part or all of this again, we will be posting this forum on the Focus website, focussyracuse.org. And please watch, audience, for our follow-up survey that you should receive shortly. Also, I have to do my little pitch, but while Focus operates very efficiently on a small budget, we do have costs associated with our operations. And we'd be very grateful for your donations of $15, $25 or more to help us continue our efforts, including Focus forums like this one. So donations can be easily made on our website, focussyracuse.org. I think that's it. We're right up against the hour. Thanks to all, and have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Take care.
Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Thank you very much.